Spoken. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is one foot in front of the other. We often get really impatient for results and we want things to be done yesterday. And we often um, allow ourselves to get into all kinds of craziness with urgency and pressure and timing and I think it can be easy to overlook the power of consistency and just putting one foot in front of another, making incremental progress toward our intentions and our objectives. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, let's just take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling as you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning. Good morning, Rosalind. So great to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. We're talking about one foot in front of the other. It makes me think of the tortoise and the hare, and slow and steady wins the race, and all those kinds of sayings that, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And initially I was thinking of calling this morning's conversation something about inertia, but that's what it takes, overcoming inertia to get in motion, to start taking action, and overcoming that inertia, we're able to build momentum. And I think actually that momentum needs to get built in a way before we can even take that first step. And we need to be building momentum to get that first step. The first step is often the hardest because we have this inertia. We're in full stop mode, which, although we might consider it passive, in a way, it has its own resistance to it that makes it an active force that we need to contend with. So we can manufacture ways to break that inertia. We can manufacture ways to incite ourselves. We can create positive incentives. We can create negative incentives or penalties if we don't do a certain thing. And all of these tools that we can cultivate help to catalyze us into action toward our objectives. So sometimes all it takes is a choice to get in motion. And then as if we can be consistent, if we can just keep putting one foot in front of the other, we end up making all kinds of progress where we can eventually get to a place and we can look back and say, oh my gosh, I traversed this big distance. How did I do that? Because it was incremental, and maybe those small steps didn't feel like a lot at the time, but little by little we're moving toward the achievement of whatever intention or objective we had set for ourselves. And the thing is, those steps sometimes can be imperceptible. We're not even aware that we're taking those steps in a way, but little by little we end up getting where we were intending to go. So it's funny, I was talking to a friend who has a beautiful big vision for expression of themselves, and sometimes it's easier to hold the dream than it is to pursue the dream, right? Because when we hold the dream, we can make it's all shiny and bright. And when we step into pursuing the dream, we're actually risking the possibility that that dream may not be as shiny when we achieve it, or it may not come true. Like maybe if we commit to the dream, it's possible that it may not work out. And then we've been invested in something that didn't come to fruition in the way that we envisioned. And we often talk about that dynamic as fear of failure. It can also be fear of success. What if I get the dream and the dream isn't what I dreamt of? Or what if I get the dream and I'm not equal to it in some way, shape, or form? The thing is, with these incremental changes, something that's wonderful is that it allows us to move toward becoming or into becoming the self that we need to be in order to achieve that dream. And sometimes that means wrestling with our demons along the way. I've been chronicling a massive wrestling match of my own that I just sort of completed maybe yesterday, after a long, it felt like forever, but it was probably about a week, but a really intense week of wrestling with demons that I needed to be able to leave behind in order to make the next steps. So along this one foot in front of the other, what we get to realize is that the journey is not a straight line necessarily. There's a lot of meandering, a lot of wandering, a lot of swerving and weaving, I think, oftentimes. And sometimes it feels like it's taken us off the path, when in fact we might be collecting more data or knowledge or experience, or letting go of certain patterns and parts that have lived through their life cycle, their natural life cycle, letting go of things that we need to do in order to be getting to the next stage of the journey. So one foot in front of the other, to have patience with ourselves and allow for the unfolding of things in their perfect time. I can't say how many times I myself and others that I have witnessed have just been trying to push the river, and our impatience has us wanting to be at the end of the journey without the journey. We just want the outcome. We don't want to have to travel the dusty roads and the beautiful landscapes and the frightening encounters, or we don't want to have to deal with all that. We just want to be there. But the thing is, it's the journey that qualifies us for the results. It's the journey and all those encounters and lessons and growing opportunities that make us worthy or fit or even capable for what's at the destination. And then the destination becomes a new jumping off point. It's not like there's an end to the journey. I think that that's another thing we tend to imagine. And I, again, have so many times heard people say, when I make this much money, then I'll be happy. When I finish doing this, then I'll sit down and follow my dream. Rather than let's do it now. Don't, like, make room to be able to block out the things that are, when this is done, I'll kind of things. Like when the house is all in order, when everything is organized, then I'll be able to sit down and concentrate on my creative endeavors. What if we can kind of do a blended approach, for example, where we do a little bit of our creative stuff while we're doing the organizational stuff, or it, instead of this black and white, one or the other, maybe we can spin a couple plates at a time. It's interesting to talk about that because I'm someone too who tends to, ironically, I tend to super focus on something, put a lot of attention on it, at least historically, and to the exclusion of other things. Like I used to, growing up, I don't think I do this anymore, but I used to just eat the different things that were on my plate one by one. Like if there were potatoes and peas and salad and meat, even at that time, I would eat the one thing at a time. And I think that is kind of a metaphor for how I approached and how a lot of us approach um, our lives and our activities in our lives. But at the same time, what's interesting is that perhaps you, like me, cherish variety as well. So how do we, and we have lots of demands on our lives, how do we navigate all these different things? And I think one way to do that is maybe by segmenting our attentions or our times, where we can say, okay, I'm going to take this block of time. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to just tune out the other things, focus on this, and then focus on this and focus on this. And rather than it being a week or a month or a huge block of time, maybe compress those blocks of time, make them smaller so that we can put focused attentions on these many different things that are calling for our attention. So getting back to the power of one foot in front of another or of the other is if we do put some attention here and put some attention there and put some attention in another place in blocks that are meaningful, where we can actually see some progress, what happens is that we are moving the needle, so to speak, in moving toward the achievement of our objectives. The key is consistency. And I guess part of that consistency is giving ourselves enough meaning to maintain that commitment. So what does it look like? What kind of internal incentives can we give ourselves to support ourselves in maintaining that consistency, even that little bit on a daily basis? And this gets to meaning making. As humans, we are storytellers and meaning making machines, and we assign meaning to the different elements of our lives. And some of those meanings are compelling and move us forward, and some of those meanings are impediments to what we want to achieve or envision for ourselves. And so the stories that we create, the meanings that we make, are important. So what's a compelling story or meaning that we can associate with these things that we desire, that will allow us to transform something from a dream that we're dreaming to a dream that we're enacting, to a dream that we are bringing into fruition. So when we're talking about this, it calls us to look into our values, because if we can associate an objective with a deeply held value, then we're giving it more energy, we're giving it more power. So for me, one of the primary values is freedom. And tied in with freedom, if we can bundle these values together, that the more that we bundle, the more energy we're creating. So for me, part of freedom is growth, learning. Like that gives me more opportunity, freedom of choice, more options, for instance, to choose from. It's interesting because yesterday we were talking a little bit about constraint and freedom within constraint. And then when all options are available, it can be paralyzing. So when we create an objective, that gives us a constraint to move toward, right? The question of how we move toward that constraint and how we can incentivize ourselves is an important, it's a primary question, because it takes a commitment to something, to be able to revisit it day after day after day. And carrot and stick, interesting combo, that if we can create something that is calling us forward while also creating something that might be giving us a push from behind, that's ideal, right? That gives us the wind from behind to help ease our way, and the pull of the future to call us forward. So that can give us greater momentum and help us overcome the inertia. But we were talking about values, and how if we can assign our values and be in alignment with our values, with these commitments, that's going to make all the difference in the world. So, for instance, freedom for me, and maybe, hopefully, maybe for you, is being able to have the opportunity to do what I want to do when I want to do it, for instance, or to have choices about things. And when we attach a positive emotion, this is part of the art of manifesting. When we experience the end objective, when we experience the joy, the fulfillment, the satisfaction of it, the enthusiasm of it, the excitement of it, what we're doing is we're encoding that information in our bodies. That's part of what then calls us forward, that pulls us into creating that circumstance. So, for instance, with a vision or a dream that we have for ourselves, to experience the joy of being in that space, rather than the fear of what if it isn't what I want it to be. We can create it with our joy, enthusiasm, in alignment with our values, feeling that emotional enthusiasm that helps to call us forward. On the other side of that, we can also look at, well, if I don't do that, what's the pain of that? What's the pain of looking, 5 years down the road and realizing I'm still where I was, and using kind of that unfortunate emotion, or that uncomfortable emotion, to help propel us forward while we're calling ourselves forward with the positive emotion, right? Where we get to say, this, I'm really choosing to do what I need to do to move one foot in front of the other toward that objective. So I hope this is making sense. We want to be able to create momentum, to overcome inertia, to be able to make progress, and at the same time recognize that it's happening, even if it doesn't look like it's as far progressed as we would like it to be, that we are actually collaborating and dancing with time, with opportunity, and by reinforcing our intention with the excitement, with the enthusiasm, with the joy of the experience in the fulfillment of that dream, while we're buoying our commitment and our perseverance, using those things. At the same time, we can recognize that things are unfolding in their time. So the impatience creates a resistance, and the resistance sets up more of an inertia, more of an obstacle to us, where, I want this now, and I'm pushing and pushing and pushing. And the more I push, the more resistance I get. And what we want to do is to sort of just enjoy the journey that gets us not only to the place that we imagine ourselves being or desiring to be, but allows us to become who we need to be able to arrive there. So values, creating incentive that pulls us forward, as well as incentive that acts as a wind at our back, aligning our values, finding consistency, and giving ourselves a big why is what can help us have that consistency that we need to further our dreams. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, it's a deep pleasure and privilege to have the opportunity to needle through these ideas and experiences and musings about being human. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity and grateful for you. Until next time, so much love.